Hello everyone, welcome to What If Issei Got Betrayed and Was Reincarnation of Escanor and Meliodas movie. Before we start, please go support MeliodasElReyDemonio for writing that awesome fanfic. This is the translated version I made. There will be some mistaken character's gender, but of course Issei is a male. In this story, Issei is the reincarnation of Escanor and Meliodas, obtaining all their memories and powers, combining both powers and obtaining a brutal result. Chapter Awakening of Two Legends. It all started with a fight against Razor Phoenix, who after winning the raiding game was challenged by Issei to a fight for Ria's hand. Razor accepted and the fight began. At first, Issei was beating Razor Phoenix with Balance Breaker, but after 10 seconds his transformation ran out and Razor gave him a super beating, then eliminated him, with Razor winning. The entire Gremory entourage was disappointed in Issei, but the angriest was Rias, since she only made Issei part of her nobility to defeat Razor, but she couldn't do anything with him, so she didn't need him anymore. Issei, who thanks to Successor was taken to a hospital in the underworld, would see on TV that Razor and Rias got married. Issei was angry with himself for not saving Rias. The next day, the entire entourage returned to the human world, but Issei noticed that Rias was still alive. He didn't speak to him and didn't even look at him, and the whole way he had a serious face. Issei was sad to think that his president was angry with him, but when he arrived at the human world, more specifically to the occult club, Rias would put his plan into action, where Kiba and Kaneko would take Issei from behind, throwing him to the ground where Issei would speak. "But what's going on, Kaichu?" Issei would ask. "I will punish you for not serving me, and I will remove you from the entourage," Rias would say, taking out her demonic power. The next thing that would happen is that Issei would begin to be tortured in ways that no one could imagine, spending the whole day until nightfall. Rias would tell Kaneko to take Issei to the forest, and she would accept. 30 minutes later, Issei is seen dying in the middle of the night, leaning against a tree. "Buddy, resist, I'll ask someone for help," Drake would say, worried about his friend. "Calm down, buddy, there's no need, this is what fate decided for me," said Issei, smiling while spitting blood. "No, partner, we will challenge fate and make you live," Drake would say. "No Drake, this is my goodbye, go with another carrier before we both die," Issei would say. "Are you really going to give up like that?" a voice would say, to which Issei would turn around but wouldn't see anyone. "We're inside you, Issei," the voice would say again. "Who is it?" Issei would ask, and out of nowhere everything would turn totally dark. Issei was standing in the middle of the darkness without a scratch or anything. He would think he was dead, but out of nowhere two energies would start to appear. One was purple and the other yellow like the sun itself. "What is that? Am I dead already?" Issei would say as the two energies would begin to take shape, the purple one being that of a blonde boy with what appeared to be a suit made of darkness, and the yellow one a giant muscular subject with a bright aura. Issei would be a little scared seeing the appearance of the two, but the tall man would speak. "Really, this brat will be my successor?" Escanor would say. "Appear yes, well I'm not complaining, he's just a human," Meliodas would say. "Who are you?" Issei would say, scared. "Calm down, brat, we won't do anything to you, we'll just talk to you," the tall man would say. "But where am I?" Issei would ask. "You're in your subconscious," Meliodas would say with his seriousness. "And what are we doing here?" "And Drake?" Issei would ask again. "We just came to tell you some things, and that little dragon, well I think we scared it a little with our power," Escanor would say. After that the three would start to talk about Issei being the reincarnation of them too, giving him their memories, powers, abilities etc. But Issei couldn't control his new powers. Escanor and Meliodas would train him, but first Issei would return to the normal world, where magically he was as good as new, the wounds he had before were no longer there. So Issei now with his new serious and proud attitude would stand up, and from his back, very large dark wings would come out. Issei would take flight to a place very far from human society. He would arrive at an island that humanity had never seen or visited. Issei upon landing would see that in that place, there were many giant creatures. "Okay kid, this is where you'll start training for the next few months," Meliodas would say in Issei's head. "Okay Meliodas sensei," Issei would say, where he would start fighting with the monsters that seemed to be infinite. Issei would not take a single minute of rest in months. 5 months later Issei is seen on top of a giant pile of corpses. As in the previous photo. "Okay kid, you can now control your power, and you were even able to mix them," Escanor would say. "Yes, Escanor-sensei, it's all thanks to you," Issei would say. "It's time for my revenge," Issei would say with a smiling face that showed evil. So Issei would activate his wings and fly at an immense speed that split the island in two. After a few minutes Issei would arrive at Kuo, and the first thing he would do is go to his parents' house, because although he was a demon and a demigod, he still had some humanity and love for his parents. Issei would deactivate his powers, leaving him with a power like that of a normal human. Issei would arrive at his house and see that everything was dark. Issei would enter his house, and the first thing he would see is his parents lying on the ground dead and decapitated with a giant pool of blood. Issei seeing that would begin to get angry, losing control, but the voice of his teachers would stop him. Wait Issei, don't lose control, we already talked about this Meliodas would say seriously. Yes, child, first you have to avenge your parents and what they did to you, Escanor would say, to which Issei sighed and would calm down, and his thirst for blood would begin to calm down, but his fury was still very high. Who the hell did this to my parents? When I find them and find out who it was, I'll make them pay dearly, Issei would say furiously, to which Drake would speak. Note. Drake did not leave Issei, and during all these months he was also helping Issei in his training. Partner, I can feel the trace of someone's magical power, Drake would say. Who? Who the hell was it? Tell me, Drake, and I'll go destroy him right now, Is would say. It was the Phoenix guy you fought a few months ago, Drake would say. Issei would stay still without making any movement upon hearing that. Partner? Drake would ask worriedly. Or not, I think we can't do anything anymore, Meliodas would say seriously. The only thing we can do is get him away from here so he doesn't kill anyone, Escanor would say, also serious, but out of nowhere, Issei would move again and sigh. Are you okay, buddy? Drake would say, worried. Yes Drake, I'm fine, now I'll give my parents a good burial, and then I'll go for that guy, Issei would say calmly, something that would surprise the three beings that lived inside him, since they thought he was going to destroy all of Japan because of his fury, so Issei took the bodies of his parents to the highest mountain in Japan and buried them, leaving them many flowers. Chapter Issei vs Razor. After burying his parents, Issei asked Drake if he could take him to hell. Drake, very worried about what would happen to hell, accepted. He would transport Issei to hell in a very far away place. Buddy, I hope you're not up to anything crazy, Drake would say worriedly. Calm down Drake, I'll just make the Phoenix pay for what happened to my parents, Issei would say very calmly, to the surprise of the three divinities inside him. Issei would activate his wings and fly towards the Gremory castle. When he arrived he would stand at the entrance, but he would see two guards there. Hey, who are you? One of the guards would say. Yes, tell us or get out, the other guard would say, to which Issei at a speed that they did not see landed behind them two walking to the entrance. While the bodies of the two guards fell headless, Issei would enter and would begin to walk through the corridors until reaching a room where he felt the presence of all the Gremors gathered. Issei would enter as if nothing had happened and would say. Surziches, I have to talk to you, Issei would say with an expressive face. Surziches, upon hearing that they called him, would look towards the place and would see a guy he had never seen before in his life. Imagine him with a serious face. Excuse me, but who are you and how did you get in? Asked Surziches, confused. My name is Hyoudou, Issei, and I came to talk to you, Issei would say seriously. Issei? What happened to you? You look very changed. Surziches would say. It's a long story, Surziches, now I need to talk to you about something, Issei would say, maintaining his seriousness. What's happening, Issei-kun? The Mao would ask. I need you to organize a fight between me and the Phoenix Razor, Issei would answer the Mao, who would be surprised. Ah, I understand now. You want to try to save my sister again so she can separate from Razor, right? Surziches would ask. No Surziches, I'm no longer involved with you Gremors, now I'm someone free, Issei would say. But why do you say that? Didn't you say that you were Rias' pawn? Surziches would say, looking at Rias, who was very nervous. Issei, upon hearing this from Surziches, would fix his gaze on Rias. Haven't you told your brother what you and your dear entourage did to me? Issei would say more seriously. What are you talking about, Issei-kun? Surziches would say, looking at Issei and then looking back at Rias. Explain to me, Rias, what did they do to Issei? The Mao would ask, to which Rias would get so nervous that she wouldn't be able to speak. I'll explain to you, Surziches, the moment I lost against Razor they tortured me to the point of no return, then they took my pawn pieces and threw me into a forest where they would let me die, Issei would say, furiously remembering that moment. What? Is that true, Rias? Tell me the truth or you'll be punished, Surziches said, looking at Rias seriously. But Oni-sama, said Rias, that she wouldn't finish speaking since Surziches interrupted her. Only answer if you did laugh, Surziches would say. Well yes, but it was because it wouldn't work for me anymore, Laras would say, not being able to finish since her Venezuelan mother slapped her. How could you possibly do such an atrocity, Rias? I'm furious with you and your entourage, she would say angrily. Calm down, mother, we'll talk about this later, Surziches would say, looking seriously at Rias, who was rubbing the part where her mother hit her. Surziches would look at Issei again, changing her face to a slightly happier one. Well, Issei-kun, I apologize for what happened to my silly sister. Now about the fight against Razor, could you tell me why you want to fight him? Surziches would say. Okay, I want to fight him since he killed my parents, and I'm looking for revenge, Issei would say angrily, an aura that sought to kill. Surziches' parents and Surziches, who are the most expert, could realize this, but they didn't say anything. Okay, Issei, I'll do it, but you have to know something. You can't kill your opponent unless he accepts a duel to the death. Surziches would say. Okay, I can convince him, Issei would say, who would begin to retreat. In 2 days the fight will take place so you can come back, Successor would say, to which Issei would nod and return to the human world. 2 days later. We see Issei going to the arena where Razor was waiting for him with a confident smile. Upon arriving, Issei would see that it was a large stage with many demons as spectators, while the fight would be broadcast on television. All the demons said that Razor was going to win, since Razor had previously beaten that boy twice. Issei would look at Razor furiously, beginning to unleash his demonic power, but he would calm down and come back to his senses. "Hey brat, did you see the surprise I left for you at your house?" Razor would say confidently with a smile. Issei would get a little angry upon hearing that but would contain himself. "Hey stupid Razor, I have a proposal for you," Issei would say, looking at Razor furiously. What do you want, stupid brat?" Razor would say, smiling. "The fight to the death, the winner could kill the other," Issei would say. "Haha, I didn't think you would be so stupid. Okay, I accept. When I beat you, I will torture you just like I did with your parents," Razor would say with a big smile of confidence, to which Griffia's voice would be heard saying. "Very well, as the fighters decided, this will be a fight to the death, the winner will take the other's life," Griffia would say. "Begin." "I won't need to use my magic on you, just brute force," Issei would say, looking at Razor, who would get angry and throw a sphere of fire at him, raising a lot of smoke. Razor would start to laugh, but a voice behind him would scare him. "What are you laughing at, stupid?" Razor would jump back and Issei walking towards him would say, "I'll make you pay for what happened to my parents. You'll regret having done that to them. I'll destroy you. I don't care if you go immortal or not," Issei would say, where Razor would angrily start throwing many spheres of fire at him that Issei would easily dodge. Issei at a surprising speed would get in front of Razor, giving him a super blow to the stomach, causing him to vomit blood. Razor would fall to his knees as Issei saw him and, taking him by the hair, would put him in front of his face, saying, "That was for my father," and this Issei would say, and with his other hand, he would carry a sphere of darkness in Razor's stomach, throwing it at him and piercing him, making him fly a few meters back. "It's for my mother," Issei would say as he would see how Razor began to slowly regenerate. Issei would get on top of him and put his foot on his head, beginning to crush him. Razor would scream like a madman, where all the demons were shocked by the beating they were giving Razor. Issei would stop crushing Razor's head and grab him by the neck, then Issei would start to drag Razor's head along the ground while he flew. After a few seconds he would stop and crash Razor's head into the ground so brutally that it would break it. The entire audience, including the Mayu, were truly surprised by the brutal beating that Razor was receiving. After that, Issei would take Razor by the feet, lifting him up, and with one of his hands, he would charge a sphere of darkness onto Razor's disfigured and bloody face. "It's time to finish you off, you vile and insignificant scum, and pay for your sins," Issei would say with a voice that caused even more terror to Razor. Then the sphere of darkness wrapped around Razor, where Issei would release it, and Razor would start to scream like crazy while he moved everywhere, and his body slowly disintegrated until it turned to ashes. Issei, seeing this, would speak to himself in his head and close his eyes. "Father, mother, I have avenged you, now you can rest in peace, knowing that the bastard who killed you was pulverized," Issei would say to himself in his head, while Griffia's voice could be heard. "I do." Issei is the winner, and concluding with the death of Razor Phoenix, would say Griffia, where all the spectators were paralyzed by the horrible death that Razor received from that boy. But a blonde girl was flying Asia Issei, while tears came out of her eyes, tried to hit Issei from behind, but he noticing would dodge her as if nothing. The blonde girl named Ravel, Razor's sister, would pass by, but would stop a few meters from Issei, and with tears in her eyes would speak. "Why the hell did you kill my stupid brother?" he would say, screaming while crying. Chapter The Feelings Return. "Why did I kill your brother, you ask?" Issei said, looking coldly at Ravel. "If you're stupid, you didn't have to kill him, he didn't do anything to you," said Ravel, screaming while crying. "He didn't do anything to me," Issei said, getting angry. "He killed my parents, so to avenge my parents, I took his life, and be thankful he didn't kill your entire family like he did to me," Issei said, turning around and starting to walk. Ravel, hearing that, had been in shock by what his brother did to Issei. All the spectators hearing that conversation had been impressed, since that boy only wanted revenge. But there was one person in particular who, hearing that, was very saddened by Razor's cruelty. That person was Seraphil Leviathan, one of the mouse of the underworld. Issei from the stage would see Successor in the distance watching the fight in a room with a large crystal. Issei would look directly at Successor, and he would understand what Issei wanted to say. Successor would snap his fingers and send Issei to the world human, since he had nothing to do in hell. Issei, seeing that he returned to his world, would begin to walk while talking to the beings inside him. "Do you think he suffered a lot before he died?" Issei would ask. "I think you made him suffer well, it was what that insect deserved," Escanor would say proudly as always. "You were good there, but I felt that when you told that girl about Razor killing your father, someone felt sad for you," Meliodas would say with his serious voice. "Really? I didn't know demons cared about humans. Don't you know who it was?" Issei would ask. "I know who was my partner," Drake would say. "It was Seraphil Leviathan, one of the four mouse of hell," Drake would answer. Really? I thought they cared even less about humans than other demons, Issei would answer, arriving at his house, but upon entering he would feel a somewhat large presence. Issei would prepare for any surprise attack, starting to walk towards the living room and seeing that a girl was sitting on the sofa with her back to him. "Hey you, who are you and what are you doing in my house?" Issei would say, starting to raise his power to destroy the vermin that entered his house. The girl would turn around and see Issei with a somewhat sad face. "Hello Issei-kun, I wanted to talk to you, but it seems you don't want to see anyone," said Seraphol, standing up. "Are you Seraphol?" Issei would ask. "Yes, why?" the Mao would ask. "What do you want to talk about?" Issei would ask with his voice and face without expression. "I thought you didn't want to talk to anyone," Seraphol would say, less sadly. "Someone told me that you felt a little sad when I told you about my parents," Issei would say. "Then I want to know what you need." Seraphol would be happy to hear that since Issei agreed to talk. "Okay Issei-kun, but let's sit down," Seraphol would say, taking Issei's hand and leading him to the armchair where the two would sit. Issei, upon feeling Seraphol's hand, would begin to feel a feeling that had been absent for a long time, but he would hide it behind his expressionless face. "Well Issei-kun, I heard what you said about your parents, and yes, I felt sad because I didn't think anyone could do something so cruel, much less to a child," Seraphol would say sadly. "Don't worry Seraphol, you don't have to worry. I was able to get revenge on Razor and make my parents die happy, knowing that the idiot who killed them was killed," Issei would say. "No Issei-kun, even if the Ayas are avenged you can't be alone forever," Seraphol would say. "What do you mean?" Issei would say, confused. "Can I live with you?" Seraphol would say, putting on a happy face. "What? Why would you want to live here when you have a castle in the underworld?" Issei would ask. "Because it's boring there and I know that if I'm with you, I'll be able to have fun," Seraphol would say happily. "So that's the reason, just to have fun," Issei would say, looking away sadly, at which Seraphol would feel bad so she would make a decision. Seraphol would take Issei's jaw with her hand, making them look at each other, and then Seraphol would kiss Issei on the lips, at which he would be surprised by Seraphol's action, and without reacting he would stay still. Seraphol a few seconds later would separate from Issei with her face red and looking away. "Why did you do that?" Issei would ask, surprised. "So you wouldn't think I only came to avoid getting bored," Seraphol would say, looking at Issei Roha, to which Issei would realize what Seraphol wanted to say, but inside him, little by little, a call that had been turned off was turned back on thanks to Seraphol. These were his feelings. "It's okay Seraphol, you can live in my house," Issei would say with a small smile. Seraphol, upon hearing that, would be so happy that she would jump off the couch. "But I'll warn you one thing, in this house there is only one room, so you'll have to sleep in my bed while I sleep on the couch," Issei would say. "Okay Issei-kun, I'll sleep with you, and from now on, call me Serachan," Seraphol would say. After a few seconds, Seraphol would calm down and say. "Issei-kun, I'll be right back. I'll go get all my things and I'll be back in a while," Seraphol would say, retreating to her castle in a magic circle. "Wow, that girl is crazy," Escanor would say inside Issei's head with some grace. You're right, I had heard that that girl was childish, but not to this point," Drake would say. "Well Issei, you already have a suitor. Are you still with that ridiculous plan of being the king of the harem?" Meliodas would ask Issei. "No Meliodas-sensei, that silly dream was from my previous self, now I will only open my heart to one person," Issei would say, showing a small smile that would surprise the three since Issei had not smiled for a long time, and that meant that his emotions were slowly returning. Issei would get up from the couch and go to tidy his room, since Seraphol would sleep there. After a few minutes Seraphol would arrive at Issei's house in a magic circle, and with about 3 briefcases with her things. Seraphol was looking for Issei, but could not find him, so she would look on the second floor and would see that there was a door half open. Seraphol, with curiosity, would see what was inside and would see Issei tidying up the room. Seraphol would enter and say. "Issei-kun has arrived," Seraphol would say happily. "Ah, I hadn't realized," Serachan, Issei would say. "What are you doing?" Seraphol would ask curiously. "Tidying up the room so you can sleep," Issei would say. "But I told you that we'll sleep together," Seraphol would say. "We can't, we don't even know each other yet, so you can sleep together," Issei would say while he lifted a pillow from the floor about to place it on the bed, but Seraphol would take his hand and smiling would say. "Come on Issei, don't be shy and sleep with me," said Seraphol, while showing a beautiful smile to Issei's eyes. It's okay," Serachan, Issei would say smiling. Seraphol would get happy and would give Issei a hug where the two would lose their balance and fall on the bed one on top of the other. Imagine that Issei is not so smiling. Sorry, Seraphol, Issei would say, about to stand up, but Seraphol wouldn't let him go, as she would put both of her hands behind Issei, so he wouldn't leave. Well, she smiled. "What's wrong, Serachan?" Issei would ask. "I don't want you to go, I feel comfortable," Seraphol would say, slightly blushing. "Ooh," but Issei would say, to which Seraphol would give him another kiss, and they would turn around where Seraphol would start kissing Issei. Issei, without further ado, reciprocated the kiss. After a few long seconds the two would separate and Serafal would speak. Issei-kun, I love you, Serafal would say. Wow, this girl is straight to the point, Escanor's voice would say inside Issei's head, who wouldn't give importance to what she said. I'm also starting to feel something very strong for you, Serachan, but I can't fall in love so quickly, Issei would say with some sadness in his words. Calm down, Issei-kun, we can have a date and get to know each other better, Serafal would say, to which Issei would look at her directly and say. It's okay, Serachan, Issei would say, showing a small smile, to which the two would continue kissing without going any further. Chapter Sita and Fight Against Kokabiel. After a few seconds of Issei and Serafal separating from kissing, these two would prepare for their Sita, so the two would go to get dressed, and 5 minutes later Issei would be at the door ready to go to the Sita waiting for Serafal, who after 30 minutes would appear, and as Issei saw she looked beautiful. Issei was wearing an elegant suit and Serafal was wearing a dress. Serafal would wear a dress like that, but not so revealing. I didn't put another image, since it's the only one I found where she's not almost naked, lol. Serafal would take Issei's hand and would say very happily. Let's go, Issei-kun. Serafal would say. Of course, let's go, Serachan, Issei would say, and then they would leave the house and start doing everything a date can have, go to the movies, go to a restaurant, go shopping for clothes, etc. Well, now we see our protagonist and his beloved returning home happy. Serafal was very happy, showing a beautiful smile, and Issei was also very happy, although he showed it with a small smile that would be enough for Serafal. The two would be arriving, but they would feel a presence of a cadre at the Kuo school, and the Gremories. These two would decide to go observe by going to the top of a building, observing and listening to everything. Serafal, upon hearing that Kokabiel wants a faction war, would be willing to prevent it by jumping off the building and going where the fight was taking place. Issei would decide to follow her, so the two would fall in front of the Gremories, turning their backs and looking at Kokabiel. Well, look who we have here, Serafal Leviathan. What's a Mayu doing here? Kokabiel would say with his typical laugh. I came to stop you from starting a war, Serafal would say. You and who else? Kokabiel would say, smiling. And I, Issei would say, looking at Kokabiel seriously. Who is this brat? A low-class demon? Haha, you better get out of here, brat, if you don't want to die. Kokabiel would say. Hey, don't you dare insult Issei-kun, Serafal would say angrily. Shut up, Hitch, I'll kill you right now, said Kokabiel, preparing a spear of light and throwing it at Serafal, where there was a small explosion and raising a lot of smoke. Serafal-sama, the Gremories would scream when they thought that she was hurt or worse, killed. Haha, that was the power of the great Serafal. Haha, don't make me laugh, Kokabiel would say. After a few seconds the wall would dissipate and everyone seeing the scene would be very surprised. It was Issei holding Kokabiel's spear with his fingers and without a scratch. Kokabiel would say, somewhat angry. Damn brat, who the hell do you think you can stop my power? Kokabiel would say. My name is Hyoudou, Issei the Security, and anyone who tries to harm Serachan will pay dearly, Issei would say, destroying the spear with his fingers. Everyone would be surprised by what Issei said and the way he called Serafal, but something inside the Gremory women told them not to leave Issei with Serafal, but out of nowhere, they would see a totally dark and powerful aura surrounding Issei. He would see Kokabiel very angry, and Kokabiel seeing that look would be scared, but would hide it. Come on, brat, come here to kill you, Kokabiel would say angrily. I am stronger than you will never be able to surpass him in your life, because you are only a common human, Kokabiel would say, but the whole sky would light up as if he were alone there. Well, Issei little by little was growing in size, and his muscles were growing, and from the tips of his fingers, he would create a sun and say a few words. That you're stronger than me? And who decided that? That I'll never be able to surpass you? And who decided that? That I'm a commoner? And who decided that? The only one who decides that is me, Issei said, his stance making him look like a giant to everyone. Who the hell is this guy? Is he really human? Kokabiel asked himself. Cruel son, Issei would say, where he would throw the sun, easily destroying the barrier that Zona and his group made, so the sun along with Kokabiel would fly to the sky and explode, making an immense explosion that illuminated the entire city of Kuo and turning Kokabiel to ashes. Everyone was incredibly surprised by Issei's incredible power, but more so the Gremories, who felt sorry for having betrayed Issei, but Rias would not measure her words, and going there Issei would speak. Hey Issei, let's go to the occult club now, Rias would say. Issei, seeing that Rias was talking to him, would turn around and with a face without expression would say. And who the hell do you think you are, talking to me like that? Issei would say. I am your mistress and I order you to go to the occult club so I can put your pawn pieces back on you because you belong to me, Rias would say angrily, to which Issei, without saying any words, would only create a single, putting it in Rias' face, about to kill her. But before killing her, someone will interfere. Wait, Issei-kun, Serafal would say. What's wrong, Serachan? Issei would say, deactivating his son. I will speak, Serafal would say, to which Issei would just let her speak and preparing to kill Rias in case it was something crazy. Hey Rias, who do you think you are, giving orders to Issei? This serious woman would say. He is my pawn and he has to obey me, you would say angrily. He's no longer your pawn. Don't you remember that you betrayed him? He told me everything you did to him and he doesn't belong to you anymore. Seraphil would say seriously. Boo, but you would say, but Seraphil would interrupt you. But don't laugh, if you talk to Issei like that again, I'll be forced to tell your brother what you're doing with Issei, Seraphil would say, to which he would laugh even more angrily. She would turn around and return to her group. Okay Issei-kun, shall we go? Seraphil would say, recovering her happiness, to which Issei would nod, and together with Seraphil, they would return to Issei's house hand in hand, leaving the Gremory surprised, but before Issei and Seraphil leave, the Akuriku Vali would appear. Hey Albion, I don't feel Kokabiel's power, Vali would say. It seems that boy had a fight and finished him off, Albion would say. Wait, that boy, I think he has drag, Albio would say. Hey your security, I would speak, Vali. Are you talking to me? Issei would say, looking at Vali. Yes, did you finish off Kokabiel? I would ask. Yes, it was very easy, Issei would say as if nothing had happened. That's a good sign, I trust that you will be strong and that soon we will have our fight as rivals that we are, Vali would say. I'll tell you anyway, I hope you're strong enough to at least have fun, Issei would say, to which Vali would start laughing. I hope so, boy, Vali would say, and here the celestial dragons would have the same conversation as in the original story, so Vali would retreat as would Issei and Seraphil, while Rias and her entourage stayed in the same place. What are you going to do, Rias? Akeno would ask, worried that her friend wouldn't do something stupid. I'm going to talk to my brother to complain about Seraphil and have her expelled from Mayu, said angrily. Chapter meeting and fight. Rias would go to visit her brother Successor after Issei defeated Kokabiel. Rias and her entourage would arrive at the Gremory castle and go directly to Successor, who was talking with her parents Benelana and I don't remember the father's name. One Sama, I want to talk to you, Rias would say seriously. Are you laughing? What do you need? Successor would say, to which he laughed, taking advantage of the fact that his parents were also there. He would say everything. Oni-sama, I want you to expel Seraphil from Mayu, Rias would say, to which her brother and parents would be surprised. But what are you saying, Rias? Successor would ask, confused. Yes, Oni-sama, I want you to expel her like Mayu, said Rias. But why? Successor would ask. Because I told Issei to be my pawn again, but apparently Seraphil and Issei are dating, and Seraphil didn't allow Issei to be my pawn, dear Rias. Just because of that? Are you listening to yourself, Rias? You're being selfish. It doesn't matter that Seraphil has a relationship with Issei, it's surprising, but it's not wrong that they are boyfriend and girlfriend, and just because he doesn't let you be with Issei you don't want me to be a Mayu anymore. I will never do that, Successor would say, to which Rias would understand, but would still be a little angry since she wanted to have Issei back. After that little talk, Rias and his group would return to the occult club and would decide to free Gasper, where thanks to Azazel they would make him a little less shy. I also forgot to say that Zenobia has already joined Ria's clan and Irina is still with Michael since she couldn't talk to Issei since he left very quickly after defeating Kokabiel. Days later we see Seraphil and Issei at her house having dinner as a couple. Hey Issei-kun, I wanted to ask you something, Seraphil would say, somewhat shyly. What's wrong, Sera-chan? Issei would say with a smile since he only smiled when he was with Seraphil. The faction meeting will be held soon and I would like you to join me, Seraphil would say, afraid that Issei would say no. It's okay, Issei would say as if nothing had happened, where Seraphil would be surprised. Are you okay? Doesn't it bother you that you're laughing and his group is there? Seraphil would ask. As long as they don't bother me it's fine, but if they bother me I'll have to kill her and whoever interferes, Issei would say. Okay Issei-kun, Seraphil would say happily. A few days later Issei and Seraphil already trusted each other, where for the first time in a long time Issei felt happiness and confidence in someone. The two of them would be going to the faction meeting where there would be different people from the three factions. I won't name them since you know who they are. Hello Successor, Seraphil would say happily. I don't remember if Seraphil said it that way or something else, and so Seraphil would greet everyone present and everyone would return the greeting. Who is that boy? Azazel would ask with his typical smile. He is the security who killed Kokabiel, and surprisingly he is human, Vali would say, smiling and excited to fight Issei. Yes, and he's my boyfriend, Seraphil would say happily, surprising everyone that Seraphil and a human who is carrying drag are dating. Well boy, congratulations on getting a girlfriend, Mayu said, Azazel smiling. Thank you, fallen angel, Azazel, Issei would say with his typical expressionless face. Well, let's start with this, Successor would say smiling, and the meeting would happen, and Rias would explain what happened with Azazel, and that in the end Issei finished him off. The meeting would end on the verge of signing the peace treaty, but out of nowhere time would stop. Everyone except the strong ones, including obviously Issei, would freeze, including Rias and her clan, as well as the one in Zona, and out of nowhere a part of the academy would be destroyed, and everyone would see thousands of magicians and Kateria Leviathan. Who are you? Azazel would ask. My name is Kateria Leviathan, and I have come to kill the false mass, she would say angrily. Zenobia would remember that Gasper and Kaneko were in the occult club telling Surziches, and he would send her to rescue her and Michael, realizing that would send Irina to help Zenobia. Okay, Vali, go have fun, Azazel would say, to which Vali, smiling, would go and start destroying wizards. Kateria-chan, why are you doing this? Seraphil would ask. Because you took our places and right now I will kill you to get my place back, Seraphil would say, preparing an attack to launch at Seraphil, but before launching it, Issei would appear behind Kateria, grabbing her hand very tightly. You better calm down if you don't want to die, Issei would say seriously, to which Kateria would start to scream in pain and Issei would let go of her, but as soon as he let go, she would move away a little and angrily say. Who the hell are you? She would say angrily. My name is Issei Hyoudou, a human, and anyone who dares to threaten Seraphil will pay with their life, Issei would say. A human? What kind of nonsense is that? A human will never beat me, Seraphil would say, throwing a lot of explosions at Issei, and out of nowhere smoke would be created. No one knows where that smoke came from if they were supposed to be in the air, but in all anime it's like that, so it's okay lol. When the smoke spreads, Issei is seen as if nothing had happened and with his upper part destroyed, showing all his muscles. It's time to die, Issei would say, who at great speed would knee him in the stomach, making him spit blood, and then joining his two hands, he would give him a super blow to the head, making him crash into the ground, creating a crater and raising a lot of smoke. As the smoke spreads you can see Kateria lying on the ground with a lot of blood. You are very weak, it's time to destroy you, Issei would say, slowly going down to where Kateria is. Issei with his hand would begin to create a dark sphere to kill her, but Seraphil would approach Issei. Wait, Issei, you don't have to kill her, Seraphil would say worriedly. No, anyone who dares to threaten you deserves death, Issei would say. Please Issei, don't kill her, Seraphil would say, putting on a tender face. When Issei saw her, he would completely stop his attack, disappearing the attack and getting closer to Seraphil. I can't ignore that beautiful face, Issei would say with a small smile, surprising all the spectators since for the first time in a long time they saw Issei smile. Seraphil upon seeing that smile couldn't hold it in any longer and would give Issei a kiss for a few seconds and then they would separate. I love you, Issei, Seraphil would say to what Issei was about to respond, but someone would interrupt them. I do, Issei, I would like to have our fight now, Vali would say in Balance Breaker, to which Issei would hear him and say to Seraphil. Hey Sera-chan, go with the others so you don't put yourself in danger, Issei would say, to which Seraphil would accept and giving him one last kiss would return with the other mass. Okay, Lucifer, Issei would say, to which everyone would be surprised to hear that. Vali is certainly the descendant of Lucifer and the strongest Ikuriku that has ever existed and will ever exist, Azazel would say. Hey Azazel, I won't follow you anymore, this side is better, Vali would say, smiling. Okay, fine, if you want to go with the Chaos Brigade, then I can't do anything, Azazel would say. Hey Hyoudou, Issei, how did you know he was Lucifer's descendant? Vali would say, seeing Issei and taking out 4 pairs of wings. It's easy seeing your energy, from the first moment we saw each other I knew it, Issei would say. Well, that gives me a good sign, you're strong, Hyoudou, Issei. This will be the best celestial dragon fight that has ever existed, Vali would say, to which Issei would fly at the same height as Vali, but moving a few meters away and would use Drake's Balance Breaker to make this fight more entertaining. Come on Hyoudou, Issei, this fight will be very exciting, Vali would say, and the two would launch themselves to attack each other. Chapter Issei vs Vali. Issei and Vali were preparing to fight, the two would activate their Balance Breaker, while all the spectators were impatient. Come on Hyoudou, Issei, let's have our glorious fight, Vali would say. I hope it's a good fight, Issei would say, smiling, and the two would disappear from one second to the next and would start to clash fists. The only thing they could see was the moment in which their fists clashed and their auras. The two would continue to clash their fists at an incredible speed for a few long seconds, leaving everyone surprised by the incredible speed and power, but from one moment to the next, the two would approach and hit each other. Both were excited by this incredible fight where neither of them would turn back. Out of nowhere, both would appear on the floor joining their hands and holding on to each other so as not to retreat. The two would use so much force that lightning would come out of them where the factions would have to make a barrier so that the fight would not affect them. Out of nowhere, Vali would connect a strong blow to Issei in the stomach, causing him to retreat a few meters. The two would smile and launch themselves at each other, starting to hit each other, taking the fight all over the school, destroying it completely. The two would smile and continue hitting each other at such an incredible speed that the mass could barely see. Out of nowhere, the two would hit each other with their arms and create a large crater in the ground about 20 meters wide. Everyone would be surprised, but the fight between Vali and Issei would continue hitting each other very hard and destroying their armor, but they would put it back on very quickly. In one of those clashes of fists, Issei would manage to land a great kick in the face to Vali, causing him to spit blood, and with his fist, he would give him a super blow to the jaw, causing him to start flying up. Issei at great speed would appear above Vali, joining his two hands trying to hit Vali, but he would disappear and would appear behind Issei wanting to hit him, but Issei would also disappear and would appear next to Vali trying to kick him, but Vali would disappear again appearing above Issei and joining his two hands, he would give him a super blow to the head, sending him with great force to the ground, creating a large crater and raising a lot of dust. They are both very powerful, and so evenly matched. Successor would say surprised by the fight, but Serafel would say. No Zerchan, this fight is very uneven. Serafel would say. What does Serafel mean? Azazel would ask. Issei is only using Drake, but he is not using his true strength. Issei is only using Drake to have an even fight against Vali, but if Issei used those other powers he would easily beat Vali, I would say Serafel. Those other powers? Successor would ask, confused. Just watch, Serafel would say, and everyone would continue watching the fight. As the smoke disperses, Issei is seen standing, looking at Vali, without his armor. Very well, Hyoudou, Issei, this fight was the best I've ever had, you made me use all my power, and I'm happy about that, but we have to finish this fight, Vali would say breathing heavily. I think the same, we have to finish this fight, Issei would say, deactivating his balance breaker and returning to his base state, leaving everyone surprised. What are you planning, Hyoudou, Issei? Vali would ask, surprised. I plan to finish this fight as you yourself have said, and for that I have to beat you, Issei would say. And without your armor? Come on, put it on and let's finish this, Vali would say. It's not necessary, I'll beat you without Drake, Issei would say. Vali was about to answer, but out of nowhere they would feel a heavier atmosphere, everyone would see Issei who was with a smile and a dark mark on his face looking at Vali. But what? Vali would say, surprised by Issei's incredible power, but out of nowhere, Issei would appear in front of Vali, giving him a super blow to the stomach, causing him to spit blood and the armor to be completely destroyed, knocking him out. Before Vali fell to the ground, Issei would grab him by the sweater and lower him to the ground. Issei would deactivate his mark and say. It was a good fight, but you only made me fight with Drake, Issei would say, and out of nowhere, he would be hugged by Serafel very happy where they would kiss, and after a few seconds they would separate. What an incredible fight, Issei-chan, Serafel would say happily. Yes, it was a great combat, said Vali while looking at Vali who had fainted. Imagine the Chandel as Vali and is passed out. Successor and everyone else would be about to go congratulate Issei, but Biku, Vali's friend, would appear and see Vali fainted and would smile when he saw Issei. Well done, Securite, it seems you gave him a fight, Biku would say. In fact, he is very strong, when he wakes up tell him that I would like to fight with him one more time, Issei would say, to which Biku would nod and carry Vali. Biku would say goodbye and leave in a magic circle with Vali. Successor Azazel and Michael would approach Issei and would begin to congratulate him where he would not mind. After a few minutes Issei and Serafel would return to their homes. The peace treaty would be signed and everyone would return to their respective places except Rias, Zona and their pieces that would stay, fixing all the mess caused by Issei and Vali at Successor's request. Why do we have to fix what others destroy? You would say angrily. I don't know, but we have to do it as an order from Successor-sama, I would say Zone. Issei and Serafel, upon arriving home, would first eat and then go to bed where Serafel had a big surprise for Issei, who would gladly accept it. Everyone already knows what it is like 7U7, Wild Brain X TTT. The next day the two happy would get up and Serafel would be surprised since Issei now showed more of his emotions of happiness, which would make her very happy since she was changing to Issei. Days later, Serafel would be informed that they would have a meeting with the leader of Asgard Odin for a peace treaty, so Serafel would tell Issei, and this interested in being able to meet the father of all Odin would agree to go. So the meeting would take place where Issei would want to go talk to Odin to tell him if they could have a fight, but out of nowhere Loki would appear who would claim to Odin that they did not have to join inferior beings, referring to the factions. Odin angry would tell him to go, but he would not accept what he would begin to attack, but the Mayojuka would lock him up in a temporary prison that would last 24 hours. Chapter Fight against Loki. In the previous part, the Mayojuka was able to lock up Loki, but the effect only lasted 24 hours, so the factions would have a meeting to decide who would go. Successor would say that his sister's group could go, Michael would send Arena, Azazel, I don't remember who he sent. But before they confirmed Serafel would go. Why don't you go, Issei-kun? She would say happily. I wouldn't mind killing a god, Issei would say. Do you really want to go, kid? Loki is strong, Odin would say. Don't worry, old man, I can manage, besides when I get back I'd like a fight with you, said Issei with a small smile, making Odin smile. Okay kid, if you beat Loki I'll fight you, Odin would say, to which Issei would nod and look at Successor. Send me to a place where there is no one and get Loki out of that prison, Issei would say. Are you sure, Issei? Successor would ask. Of course, now send me, Issei would say, to what Successor in a magic circle would send to a place where he would fight Loki, but Rias angrily would talk to her brother. Hey Oni-sama, why can't we go, but Issei can? She would ask angrily. Let him take care of it, Successor would say. But we also want to be useful, you would say. Ah, okay, but they will only go if Issei is in trouble, Sursages would say. It's okay, Oni-sama, Rias would say, a little happier. Well, Issei arrived at the place and Loki was released. But what the hell? What am I doing here? That damn Ajuka will pay for this, said Loki, but then he would see Issei. Who are you? Don't tell me the best thing they brought me to fight is a low-class demon. Loki would say angrily. I would love to use this power to destroy you, Issei would say, where a small but very powerful sun would be created in the sky. While Issei grew little by little, becoming more muscular, Loki would begin to feel very hot, but would quickly summon Fenrir and his son, just like a cheap copy of the world's serpent. These are my children, now they will do me the honor of destroying you, Loki would say, smiling. Attack, Loki would say, and the first to attack would be the snake that would go head on to attack Issei, but being only centimeters away from Issei, it would be decapitated with an axe that no one realized where it came from. Everyone would be surprised by that axe that Issei held with one hand despite being almost the same size, but the most surprising thing of all is that he decapitated the snake as if it were nothing. That would mean that the axe is made of a very resistant material. Loki, seeing that, would be surprised since one of his children died easily, but would send the two sons of Fenrir and they would quickly go to attack Issei, but he would take a great leap, dodging the attack of the two wolves. Issei would raise his hand and would be preparing an attack, thus he would launch a sun attack at the wolves, creating an explosion and disintegrating them completely. Everyone would be surprised by the surprising ease with which he destroyed Fenrir's children. Loki, very angry, would send Fenrir to attack him. Issei would fall to the ground and would see that Fenrir would begin to attack him. Issei would dodge all of his attacks with some ease, but Fenrir would continue attacking where Issei, tired of games, would make a pose to attack wherein everyone's side he was a giant. Issei would prepare his attack while a very hot sun was created in the sky. Fenrir, seeing that, would get very scared and would want to escape, but Issei would not allow it and would launch his attack at Fenrir, causing him to evaporate completely. Everyone would be shocked to see that, where Issei would return to his size of about 2 meters, but Loki was furious. Who the hell are you? Loki would ask angrily. I am your nightmare, just another human with superpowers that make me better than a god, Issei would say, where Loki would get angry and start attacking Issei with his very varied and powerful spells, creating a barrier of dust. Everyone would think that Issei had died, whereas the smoke spreads, Issei is seen in a sorry state with some blood. Haha, stupid human, you will never be able to defeat a god like me. Right now I will destroy you for having killed my children. I will send you to the same purgatory, stupid human, said Loki, but Issei's voice would be heard. That I could never defeat a god like you? And who decided that? That you would destroy me? And who decided that? That you would send me to purgatory? And who decided that? The only one who decides those things is me, Issei said, to give him a face that would scare Loki, since his power was growing brutally cruel. Son, Issei would say, where everyone would see Issei as a title and in his hand a sun. What the hell is this TP? Is he really a human? His power is increasing at a monster speed, Loki would say, shocked, but Issei, without waiting a second more, would launch the super attack at this, I mean, at Loki, making him start flying, destroying everything in his path, and finally a super explosion several kilometers from Escanor. Issei had finished with Loki returning to his normal state, hiding all his power of the sun in the axe, but in the factions everyone was with their mouths open. Seeing that, even Odin was really shocked by the incredible ease with which that boy finished Loki, while Seraphil was very happy and deciding that she was going to give another gift to Issei tonight. 7u7, Issei would be teleported again to where all the leaders were. Issei, seeing them, would realize that everyone was looking at them surprised. Stop looking at me, have you never seen a human destroying a god? Issei would say seriously, but he would be hugged by Seraphil, giving him a kiss and saying. Tonight I have another surprise for you, Seraphil would say with a flirtatious face, to which Issei would smile, but someone very angry would interrupt them. Have you two already done it? You would say angrily. That doesn't interest you, Issei would say seriously. If I care, I should have been the first, right? Rias would say. So now come back with me right away, she would say angrily. Issei would be about to answer, but Sursages would speak angrily. Rias, stop saying stupid things and have more respect for Seraphil. Leave Issei alone and you will be punished, Sursages would say angrily, and standing up, Rias would get scared and angrier upon hearing this and would leave the room, being followed by his group. Thanks, Seraphil would say happily. Ah, you don't have to thank me. Since you two started dating, Rias has changed a lot and is unbearable. If Rias does something stupid again, let me know. Sursages would say in a tired tone. Okay, Sursages, we're leaving now, Issei would say, but not before. Hey Odin, when are we going to fight? Issei would say. Odin would be surprised when he heard it but would say. Now I have a lot of work to do because of the stupid things Loki did, but I assure you that one day we will fight, said Odin with a smile, to which Issei would nod with a smile, and he and Seraphil would return home. When they arrived, Issei would talk. Do you think that happened to me with Loki? I would ask. No, Issei-kun, you did the right thing, and that's why I love you, Seraphil would say happily. Thanks Seraphil, I love you too Issei would say smiling, to which Seraphil would be surprised since Issei finally told her that he loved her, and at that moment Seraphil gives Issei a kiss, wherever he is he would carry her like a princess, and while they were kissing, they would go up to the room on the second floor, where they would enter the room, and there they would do their things. Chapter The Final Fight. In the previous part, Issei had defeated Loki very easily, where he would return home with Seraphil, and they would have a romantic night. Days would pass and nothing interesting would happen, but out of nowhere they would receive a call through a magic circle from Ajuka. Hey, Issei, I need you to come to my castle as soon as possible, please, Ajuka would say. It was obvious that he was nervous. What do you want, Ajuka? I'm busy Issei would say. Sorry Issei, but I need you to stop doing everything you're doing and come to my castle, because something very serious is happening, Ajuka would say, to which Issei would respond. Okay, I hope it's something important or you'll pay for it, Issei would say, hanging up the call where Seraphil would hear his boyfriend, so he would get closer to him. What's happening Issei-kun? Seraphil would ask. I don't know, but Ajuka called me saying that I should go to her castle immediately, said Issei, to which Seraphil would respond. Then let's go Issei-kun, this would say, where Issei would nod and Seraphil would create a magic circle, so the two would appear in Ajuka's castle. Upon arriving at his laboratory Issei would ask what was happening, to which Ajuka would show him on a screen how the armies of demons, angels and fallen angels were preparing, to which Issei without caring would say. Why are they doing that? Is a new holy war about to begin? Issei would say as if nothing had happened, but Ajuka would say. No Issei, this is even worse. A few hours ago I realized that a dimensional portal had been created in outer space, and from there comes a power that could even surpass yours, and that is why we are preparing, Ajuka would say, very nervous, making Issei be amazed, while Escanor and Meliodas, upon hearing what Ajuka said, would try to feel the power of that portal, and upon feeling it they would be shocked, but they would not say anything until Issei was alone. Overcome me? Are you sure? Issei would ask, somewhat surprised. Calculating the power you have shown all this time and the power that comes out of that portal, there is a big difference, said Ajuka, sweating, surprising Issei, who would concentrate on feeling that power, closing his eyes, and would be shocked to feel that power that was very powerful, and he did not know if he could overcome it. Issei was about to go see, but Ajuka would stop him. Wait Issei, you shouldn't go yet. The factions have made a plan that consists of when that thing with that power appears, all the armies will go to fight to weaken it, and then you will go to finish it off, said Ajuka, somewhat smiling, to which Issei would say seriously. They will go there just to die, they won't be able to do anything against that thing over there, said Issei, to which Ajuka would nod and say. It's the best we have, we can't send you and risk it killing you and then destroying us all, said Ajuka nervously, to which Issei somewhat angrily agreed. So the minutes would pass and on the screen, you could see how the factions were preparing for war. Issei's patience would start to run out, so he would decide to go sit on a chair that was there and close his eyes to talk to his teachers. Hey Meliodas-sensei, Escanor-sensei, don't you know who this power belongs to? Issei would ask, looking at his teacher, to which Meliodas would be the first to speak. Yes, Issei, we know who it is, Meliodas would say seriously, to which Issei would be surprised. Who is it? This one would ask. He is the Demon King, my father, Meliodas would say, making Issei open his eyes wide, but Escanor would speak. But it doesn't make sense, we're supposed to finish him off, said this seriously, something that Issei saw for the first time. So what does that mean? Didn't you guys finish it? Issei would ask, still surprised. You're right, we, the 7 deadly sins, finished him off, taking some sins with us, but I'm sure we finished him off, said Meliodas, thinking. You will have to defeat him, we don't know what happened, but you will have to defeat him if you don't want your world to be destroyed, said Escanor, to which Issei, getting serious, would say. Okay masters, I will defeat him even if I have to give my life, said Issei, to which Escanor and Meliodas would nod, but Issei would be awakened by Seraphil. Issei-kun, repeated Seraphil, waking up her boyfriend, who opened his eyes little by little. Ah. What's wrong, Sera-chan? Issei asked, waking up. The armies are already leaving and the power of the portal is becoming more and more intense. It seems that it is almost here, Seraphil said nervously, to which Issei with surprise would see the screen, and the armies were seen flying towards where the presence would appear, so Issei would remain watching, and indeed the energy of the portal was becoming more and more dense, as if it was entering the atmosphere. So the three would continue watching for minutes, but out of nowhere they would feel that power enter the planet and fall into the ocean. The armies of the factions, upon feeling that power, would be surprised and would know that they were going to certain death, but they did not care since they would give everything for their planet. So all at great speed they would go to the ocean, but being hundreds of kilometers away, they would see that where that presence came from was a giant whose top was covered by the clouds. All nervous they would continue advancing, and as they got closer, they would see the giant in all its splendor and with a gigantic sword in his hand. Everyone, upon feeling the dark power of the Demon King, would remember Issei, but this giant's power was much more powerful. From nowhere, the imposing voice of the Demon King would be heard, which seemed to be heard throughout the world. Nice to meet you, inhabitants of the new world. I am the Demon King, and I have come to destroy you, so goodbye. The Demon King would say that with just raising his sword, he would destroy half of the army. All the survivors upon seeing that would be totally terrified, but seconds later they would react, and they would all separate and begin to attack the Demon King without even tickling him. Meanwhile, in the underworld, more specifically in the castle of the Mawajuka Surziches, Michael and Azazel would appear. Did you hear what he said? Surziches would say seriously. Yes, he said he was the Demon King, Michael would say. Do you think he is the original Lucifer but more powerful? Azazel would say, but Issei would speak. He is not Lucifer, he is the Demon King from another world, Issei would say seriously. What do you mean, Issei? Surziches would ask, surprised like the others. I think it's time to tell you, these powers that I have are not mine. I have two beings inside me that gave me their powers and that died in the fight against that Demon King. The three come from another world, but it is supposed that the two people who gave me their powers along with a team were able to finish off the Demon King. What we don't know is how I could still be alive, said Issei, shocking everyone. And who are they? Said Azazel. I won't say anything else. Now we have to find a way to kill the Demon King, Issei would say seriously, but everyone would feel how the planet shook and they would see that the Demon King had finished off all the soldiers without a scratch and was beginning to walk towards an island where there were humans. It's time for me to go, said Issei seriously as he started walking outside the castle. The end of everything. Izuku headed towards the direction where the Demon King was with his dark wings. Well, the mass were very worried, but the most nervous and worried was Seraphil, who wanted to go help Issei, but the leaders would stop her so she wouldn't get hurt. The Demon King was destroying a city. Well, with his imposing, otherworldly voice he would say. "I stupid weak worms," he said, destroying the island as if nothing, but he would feel a very great magical power go towards him. He would turn around and concentrate a little more on that power and would notice that it was a demonic power like that of his children Esterosa, Zeldris. How could they get here? The Demon King asked himself, but the presence being only a few kilometers away from him, he would see that it was not any of his children, but still had a similar dark power. Issei would arrive where the Demon King standing a few meters away from him saying. "What are you doing here, Demon King?" Issei asked seriously. "Who are you?" asked the Demon King, since when he saw Issei he reminded him of Meliodas. "I am the protector of this world and I will not let you destroy it," Issei would say. "Before dying, I would like you to answer me something. Why do I feel the same darkness as my son Meliodas in you?" asked the Demon King. The leaders who saw everything behind a screen would be surprised, since one of the subjects that Issei had inside his body was the son of that giant monster. "It's because I have Meliodas Sensei's powers and he gave them to me to finish you off," said Issei, preparing himself. "I don't know what you mean, but I'll finish you off right now," said the Demon King, launching a lightning attack at Izuku, who would return it with a full counter with his sword. "It seems you have my son's full counter, but that won't do you any good," said the Demon King, slashing Issei with his weapon. He almost managed to dodge it and get away from the Demon King. "What do you think?" Issei asked Escanor, Meliodas and Dreg. "You have to wait until noon to have a chance to beat him," said Escanor, but Meliodas would come up with an idea that was very risky, but he had to do it if he wanted to save the world. Issei, already in the real world, would see the Demon King who was watching him, since he wanted to know the truth of why he had his son's power. The first thing Issei would do is activate his balance breaker with a booster gear and use Escanor's power hiding Meliodas. 1150. Issei would go to attack the Demon King, but could not do any physical or magical damage, since it seemed that magical attacks did not affect him, so Issei would begin to attack with many varied powers, but absolutely nothing did harm to him. Well, the factions were very worried since Issei, even if he goes with everything, he did not do anything to that monster, so they would decide something that could give him a small chance. The leaders of the factions together with the most powerful warriors of the factions would go to help Issei. Surziches would make a magic circle where they would appear a few kilometers from the battle that was taking place. These, without wasting a second, would quickly go to them where, being close, they would see many rays of light coming from the two fighters who were throwing powers at each other, but it was noticeable that there was an extreme advantage on the part of one side. But the Demon King, in a small distraction that Issei had, would hit him with his sword, sending him to the ocean. He was about to finish him off, but the leaders who seconds before had been loading an incredible combined attack would launch it at the Demon King, who would be distracted, but the leaders carrying out their plan would separate in many parts where the Demon King would not give importance to those ants, but the leaders did not stop attacking him from all sides. It is not that they hurt him, but they bothered him, so this somewhat angry would decide to attack, while Seraphil would go to get Issei out of the ocean, who was fainted. Seraphil, when taking out Issei, would notice that he was knocked out, so she would give him a kiss on the lips, and Issei would begin to open his eyes little by little. This one, when seeing Seraphil, would be very surprised, saying, "Why are you here?" This guy would say seriously, but someone would come up and say, "We came to help you, rest a little while we distract him," said Surziches, who would return to the fight. Issei, who was tired almost without you, would say, Don't go, the only thing you'll do is die, said this tired man, recovering his energy little by little. Don't worry, Issei-kun, rest a little, said Seraphol, sad for her beloved. No, Seraphol, I have to kill the Demon King, said Issei, standing up in the few remains of the island that the Demon King destroyed. Wait, Issei, you can't, said Seraphol, who couldn't finish speaking because Issei interrupted her. Seraphol, I need you to move away, please, Issei would say seriously. But why? She would ask. I need you to do it, please, Issei said seriously, to which Seraphol would nod and fly away a little. It's time, said Issei to his 3 teachers. Yes, Issei, it's now or never, said Meliodas, smiling. Come on, boy, show me you're not a disappointment, said Escanor, smiling at him. Come on, partner, finish that guy, said Drake, encouraging his partner, where Issei was happy. Well, the leaders were already very tired, as well as the other warriors like Sererg and others. The Demon King, without a minimal scratch, would be about to finish them off, but they would all feel a chilling power that would surprise the Demon King himself. He would turn around and see Issei in assault mode that would surprise the Demon King, but this would not end here. Issei would use the Juggernaut drive in the unique Escanor mode. The 3 powers would combine and create a new armor and power for Issei. That power was so gigantic that the world trembled, the Demon King feeling it would get serious, saying. It seems I underestimated you. Come on, this battle will be to the death, he would say, but in less than a second Issei was already in front of him, giving an incredible blow to the face of the Demon King that would send him flying to the other side of the world. Issei, without stopping for a millisecond, would go after him at great speed. It all comes down to just this minute, said Issei, knowing that the combined power of everyone would only last a few minutes. 60 seconds. I think this is not our fight now. If we just get closer we will be evaporated, Serziches would say, where everyone would nod, but Seraphol was worried about Issei. Well, the Demon King, after being sent flying, would recover and stop putting his feet on solid ground, but would see that Issei was coming towards him, ready to give him another big blow, but the Demon King, with one of his arms, would cover himself from the blow. The ocean would separate in 2, and the volcanoes would begin to erupt while the clouds darkened. It looked like a war zone. The Demon King, defending himself from Issei's blow with his other arm, would hit Issei that would move him away a few kilometers. The Demon King at great speed would go after him, and the 2 would begin to exchange blows so powerful that the earth seemed like it would destroy a million pieces. 45 seconds. Issei, in a moment of carelessness, would throw a cruel sun mixed with the demonic power of Meliodas into the Demon King's stomach, who upon receiving it, would retreat a few kilometers spitting blood. Damn you, I'll kill you right now, said the angry Demon King, throwing a gigantic gust of wind at Issei from his sword. Issei knew that if he received that attack, everything would end, so using his speed to the maximum he would manage to dodge it, but he did not count on the fact that the Demon King was behind him, who put his 2 hands in the air and hit Issei's head hard, sending him to another continent, falling in a city. The people around, seeing that a guy with a giant armor fell from the sky crashing, would be scared, but Issei, standing up exhausted, would say. Get out of here now, he said, shouting. People upon hearing Issei's dragon voice would run away in fear. 30 seconds. Issei would look at the sky and see that the Demon King was falling at great speed. Issei would step aside, and the whole country would end up destroyed. Issei would get angry since he killed many innocent people, and at great speed, he would launch himself at the Demon King, clashing fists. How the hell are you so strong, brat? The Demon King would ask while throwing many punches. Well, you were only humiliating him in the previous fight. Your son Meliodas, who is inside me, told me a plan. First, I would have to use Drake's power to use a lot of boosts while hitting her, and Escanor's power to be able to defend myself. Well, I saved your son's power so as not to exhausted. Issei said while colliding with his enemy. I don't know who those Escanor and Drake are, but it's not possible that Meliodas is inside you, but I don't care, now I'll kill you, said the Demon King, throwing a blow at Issei that destroyed his armor and sinking into the sea. 15 seconds. The Demon King would launch many magical attacks at Issei, who was under the sea, causing an explosion. The Demon King thought that Issei was dead, but out of nowhere, he would receive a great blow to the chin by an Issei with his armor on. The Demon King, at an incredible speed, would fly hundreds of kilometers into the sky. Issei, using all his speed, would get on top of the Demon King and throw another super blow to the stomach, causing the Demon King to spit out a lot of blood and be thrown into the ocean. Upon colliding with the ocean, a great tide would be created. Issei would begin to go down little by little, but the furious Demon King would come out of the ocean saying, "I'll finish you off, stupid human," he said, raising his 2 hands and starting to create a gigantic sphere of pure darkness. 5 seconds. Now I have to give it my all. This ends here, said this one, where he would put his hands pointing at the Demon King, starting to create a gigantic sphere of darkness, mixed with the cruel sun, and that also had the power of Drake. "I stupid human," said the Demon King, throwing the sphere of darkness just like Issei, so the 2 spheres would begin to collide. The world was a total chaos. All humans thought it was the end of the world. Well, great tides were created that destroyed entire cities. The volcanoes were crazy, the weather was constantly changing, and the whole world was shaking. Issei and the Demon King in a last cry would use what little strength they had left and the powers would explode, creating a gigantic explosion that was seen all over the world, but luckily very lucky the world did not explode. All humans were terrified, but little by little everything was calming down. While the leaders at great speed were approaching where the explosion occurred upon arrival, they would see Issei without his armor or transformation. He was only in his base state, all wounded with a lot of blood and without an arm, falling into the ocean. Seraphil at great speed would go for Issei, preventing him from falling, but she would notice that he was fainted. She would kiss him on the mouth and say, "Wake up Issei-kun, you won," she said, smiling while crying, seeing that Issei could barely open one eye and the only thing she would say is, "No," he said with a broken voice, and out of nowhere you would hear Seraphil behind him. It's too soon to declare victory. It was the same Demon King who no one had seen because of the incredible amount of dust that was there from that explosion. All the mass were terrified, but the Demon King at great speed would attack Seraphil, ready to kill her, but Successor, sacrificing himself, would get in the middle and receiving the attack, being that his chest was pierced. Successor would look at Issei with a smile while a lot of blood came out of his mouth and would begin to fall, but Michael would go to help him. "Don't worry, Successor, we're going to heal you," said Michael, worried about Successor who had fainted and would soon die, but the Demon King would kick Michael, who would throw him into some mountains, mortally wounding both of them. Azazel, seeing this, would get angry and would launch an attack on the Demon King, saying, "Damn you," he said, and with all his power he would throw a very large spear of light at him, but it would do nothing to him. In exchange the Demon King would launch a small attack, sending Azazel flying, who was mortally wounded. Issei, seeing this, would get furious and would start to stand up. Seraphil would try to avoid it, but he couldn't because Issei wouldn't allow it. "Damn, I will never forgive you," said Issei while Seraphil walked away, and the Demon King spoke. "And what can you do? You no longer have magic and you can barely move. I'm weak, but I still have enough power to kill all the worms in this world," said the Demon King, about to kill Issei, but out of nowhere, a gigantic aura would appear around Issei. The Demon King would be surprised that Issei still has that much energy left. "But where the hell do you get your power, brat?" asked the Demon King angrily. "This is Meliodas Sensei's ability. Well, you were attacking me with many magical attacks. I was collecting them to launch them at you all at once, and this is all the power I have left," Issei said, where the Demon King would try to attack him, but "Revenge counter," Issei would shout, and a powerful attack would be launched at the Demon King, where a great explosion would occur. Then Issei would fall completely fainted, being carried by Seraphil, who was crying for Issei. When carrying him, he would move away from where the explosion occurred, where he would take out a phoenix tear that the mask gave him in case things went wrong. So Seraphil would give it to him, but it would only heal him physically without recovering a drop of his magic. Issei would wake up and smiling would say, "Finally that monster died," this one would say, smiling and being kissed by Seraphil. "You're a fool, don't risk yourself like that. I don't want you to sacrifice your life again," said Seraphil, crying in sadness while hugging Issei. "Do you think you've defeated me?" A voice that sounded totally furious would say. Issei and Seraphil would open their eyes in surprise upon hearing it. "Damn, how can that guy still be alive? How tough is he?" Meliodas would say, seeing the Demon King, who was covered in blood all over his body but still standing, and knowing that no faction could stand up to him and destroy the world. The Demon King, without saying a word, would launch an attack on Issei with his sword that would tear the ground, splitting the pair in two. But Seraphil would quickly dodge the attack with Issei in her hands. "Damn, my stupid father doesn't give up," said Meliodas angrily. "That guy wasn't that strong when we faced him. That's because the one we faced only had half of his power, since he distributed the other half among the 10 commandments, and this Demon King, from what I feel, has all of his original power, or what's left," said Meliodas seriously. "Come on Issei, you know what to do right now," said Drag. "That's true, buddy, that's the last thing I can do. What do you think?" Issei would say, looking at Escanor and Meliodas, who knew what Issei was referring to. "Of course Issei, it will be our second time, but we are ready," said Meliodas, smiling. "I don't care, but I hope it works with that monster," said Escanor. "Okay teacher," said Issei happily, while in the real world only a second had passed. Issei, upon being saved by Seraphil, would say, "I know what to do to finish off that monster," Issei said, barely standing up. "What do you mean, Issei-kun?" Seraphil asked sadly for her beloved, but she wouldn't receive an answer but a very tender kiss from Issei. "What's wrong, Issei?" Seraphil would say that she felt that something bad would happen. "Goodbye my beautiful beloved," said Issei with a sad smile. Seraphil would start crying out of nowhere, but Issei would fly towards the Demon King, who wanted to attack Issei, but he would barely dodge his attacks, and out of nowhere, he would disappear from the Demon King's sight. He would look everywhere, but would not see him. "It's time for you to die, woman, it's your turn," said the Demon King, referring to Seraphil. "Don't believe it, I won't let you touch Seraphil while I'm here," said Issei on the Demon King's back, grabbing the Demon King's back. "But how the hell did you get there?" said the Demon King, but out of nowhere a gigantic sphere of darkness would be created surrounding the Demon King and Issei. But what are you trying to do, stupid? Said the Demon King angrily. We're going to die, said Issei smiling. What the hell is wrong with you? Do you want to die already? Said the Demon King very nervously. I don't mind dying for my loved ones, said Issei, where the demon would start to speak, but Issei would communicate telepathically with Seraphil. Seraphil, Issei would say. Hey Issei, please explain to me what you're going to do. I want you to tell me. I don't want anything to happen to you. Seraphil said, crying. I'm sorry, but this is the only way I've thought, but there is no other way to end this monster, said Issei. Well, Seraphil's heart began to beat in a not very normal way. I'm sorry, Seraphil, I have never told you this, but I love you. I have never loved someone like you. You were the first and last person who was by my side. You are everything to me. That is why I want to do this. Goodbye, Seraphil, take care, said Issei, cutting the communication. Seraphil wanted to say something to Issei, but he would just cut the call, and she is very sad. She would get on her knees and start crying. It's time, Demon King, say goodbye, said Issei, where the Demon King tried to get Issei off his back but couldn't. Damn human, I should have killed you when I could, said the Demon King, and out of nowhere. Boom. A gigantic explosion would be heard that was heard all over the world, illuminating everything, and the last thing that was heard was a ooh from the Demon King, while Seraphil, seeing that, would remain paralyzed without being able to do anything while her beloved would disappear in front of her. The last thing she could see in all that light is the silhouette of her beloved saying goodbye with his hand, so the two beings would disappear definitively. Seraphil had been in shock, but the leaders of the factions would approach her cured, since Azazel, after having received the attack of the Demon King, could still move and was cured with the tears of the Phoenix, and also used the tears that Successor and Michael had to cure them. We saw it all, Seraphil, sorry we couldn't avoid it, said Successor sadly. Issei was incredible, the best hero that ever existed, we will never forget him, said Azazel equally sadly. I hope you are with God, Issei, you were the best being of all, and we will never forget you, said Michael. So everyone would return to the underworld, where Seraphil was very sad. Years would pass, and stories would begin to be told about the legendary hero Hyoudou Issei, who gave his life to save the world. The children who heard that story were inspired to one day be like that legendary hero. Let me know in the comments below if you guys want the next part. Also check out my other video that has been shown and left. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please like and share this video. And have a fantastic day. Bye.